Hi, hello everyone. The first lecture for this module is individual differences at work. We are trying to understand the following questions. Number one, how can personality be described? So we understand what is personality. What does that mean? Second, we're trying to explore is personality related to work outcome? This is quite important questions because, well, in most of the interview nowadays, especially for the fresh graduate, we're trying to use the personality is one of the important indicator in hiring the new employees. So we would like to see, is there any close relationship between personality and work outcome? And with what extent that well, they are related. Later on, we will also cover some theories to explain about personalities. And finally, for this section, we'll understand what is intelligence and how does it related to performance. Because now we are not only focusing on personality, instead, we are going to see how emotional intelligence or other kinds of the intelligence will related to the job performance of the employees. We know people are different. It is impossible to have someone to exactly the same in their personal attributes. That's why we can see that individual differences can be physically different or psychologically different. Physically different such as the height, the weight, and appearance, etc. And psychological difference refers to the personality, intelligence that is not easily observed. What is personality? Let's work on a small task. With the person next to you, like your parents, your sibling, your friends, your neighbor. Describe your personality to each other. And then compare, how do you differ in terms of your personality characteristic? Let's use 5 to 10 minutes to work on this task. Previous researchers found that there are around 18,000 words that describe personality in the English dictionary. To me, I would consider that there is unlimited number of words that describe personality. Personality refers to an individual's characteristic pattern of thought, emotion, and behavior, together with the psychological mechanism, hidden or not, behind those patterns. In short, personality can describe people's emotion and behavior, no matter it is observable or not, and mostly is not easily to be observed. It describes people's emotion and behavior pattern. In most of the time, people use trail approach to describe personality. This approach considers people along a continuum to describe personality in terms of where a people lies along the continuums. It means that people will have different characteristic patterns to describe their emotion as well as their behavior. To understand people's personality, two important keywords that should be noted. The first one is trait. A trait is a consistent, long-lasting tendency in behavior. It describes people's behavioral pattern in a more long-term situation. For example, like sociability, it tells us whether the people like to interact with others, would like to socialize with others, or shyness or assertiveness, whether this person will have a very clear goal mindset in a more long-term basis. In a more short-term basis, that is states. A state is a temporary activation of particular behavior or affect. because of some certain event, such as an examination. So this person feels anxious. So anxious caused by the examination. This anxious feeling is just quite very short-term and temporary. It's activated by the examination. When we describe people's personality, we can use many different words and terms. One of a very widely used and authorized theory to describe people's personality is ocean. Ocean, O, refers to openness to experience. C refers to conscientiousness. E refers to extroversion. A is agreeableness. And N is neuroticism, that is emotional stability. Ocean. How do we test people's personality? As we said, we always use Big Five or Ocean in order to test people's personality. There are altogether 5 dimensions, and each of the dimensions will have 6 items. And so altogether, we'll have 30 items to test people's ocean personality, the Big Five personality. In each of the items, there are 2 ends. On the same continuum, on one end is one word, and on the other end is the opposite of this wording. For example, the first dimension is openness to experience. So one of the items is imaginative, and that could be on one end. On the other end, the opposite wording would be down to earth. So from this, people will need to evaluate whether they are having more tendency towards imaginative or towards the other end that is down to earth. So from this, it can test the people's tendency on being more openness to experience or less likely to be openness to experience. So 2 ends on the same continuums. One of the sample item is imaginative versus down to earth. Another one is creative or uncreative, or original and conventional. So all of this, the words in the blanket is on the other end. So when the people need to answer the question, they have to consider whether they are on the right hand side wording or they have a more tendency on the left hand side of this wording. Conscientious, some of the examples like responsible or irresponsible, hardworking versus lazy, orderly versus disorganized. Number 3, E, extroversion, outgoing or shy, talkative or quiet, agreeableness, agreeable or disagreeable, gentle or strong, and emotional stability, whether they are unworried or fearful or at ease or nervous. After testing people's personality, the next question coming up would be, does personality matter in the workplace? This is quite important question because as you can see that in many companies nowadays, especially when they are hiring the management trainee or some fresh graduate, they will require the job candidates to work on the personality test because they believe that personality matters in the workplace, can help to explain their future expected job performance. So the next question is, how this Big Five, the ocean dimension, will help us to predict people's behavior and job performance in the workplace? We have to consider that, whether and to what extent a typical person of this will fit with What types of the occupation? To answer this question, we have to refer to the person-job fit theory in order to answer this. Person-job fit describes the extent to which an individual's skills, ability, and preferences match the demand of the job. To see whether the person, their characteristic, their pattern, their personality, whether they fit with that certain particular job, the demand of the job. So this is what we call person-job fit. A lot of the research has already confirmed that person-job fit have been related to job satisfaction, intention to quit, and reduced stress. It means that if we can hire someone who is good fit in the job in terms of the skills, ability, which can match with the demand of the job, it is very likely to have a positive and increased job satisfaction. And having less intention to quit, they don't want to quit the job, and well, they have a reduced stress level. As getting more and more companies are using personality tests in the first screening of the right candidates, and a lot of the research have confirmed that whether the usefulness of the personality Big Five will help in predicting job performance. Using a more systematic statistic from a meta-analysis of 92 studies, researchers found that conscientiousness and emotional stability are the best predictor of overall job performance amongst the 5 dimensions. And some of the research also confirmed that conscientiousness and emotional stability are linked with the overall work performance across different occupations. It makes sense because if the people that they can really rely on them have a high level of reliability and will being very conscious on their job, and also they being so calm and the emotion will not change too much, fluctuate too much, and so it is very likely to be a good employees. People like to interact with them, people like to work with them, and so it is very likely to link with the overall positive work performance. The research also found that agreeableness, extroversion, and openness only predict success in specific occupation or for some specific performance criteria. Say, for example, like we can see that extroversion is particularly important in the teamwork. So that's why is highly related to teamwork and managerial performance. For some of the occupation, probably extroversion is not very preferable, such as IT programmer, because IT programmer, we just require someone who have patience and they love numbers. It is not necessary for being too outgoing and too talkative. They don't need to interact with people a lot. So in this case, probably it may not help or even will hurt their work performance. So the research can confirm that not all the dimensions will be related to people's work performance. It depends on different occupation, especially in terms of the agreeableness, extroversion, and openness. Some people will argue that why agreeableness may not necessarily help in enhanced work performance for some of the occupation. In some of these very specific occupation like lawyer or like marketing team, and so we do need to have someone who are not extremely high level of agreeableness, because if people somehow they are too high level of agreeableness cannot stimulate their creative and innovative idea. So in this case, probably we need someone who will in the medium. not being too agreeable or not being too low level of agreeableness, not always argue with people. So, well, we can see that it depends on different occupation. Does personality predict other relevant work outcome? Yes, some of the research found that, especially in the meta-analysis, provide us a more holistic view to show us that conscientiousness, agreeableness, emotional stability, extroversion, and openness can predict organization citizenship behavior. Organization citizenship behavior is different from in-role performance. We are not requiring the employees to do this, but if they are just like good citizens, to have to do some extra role to help the organization, to help their colleagues, and so it do really help to improve the organization or not. The research found that if people who are high on conscientiousness, very hardworking, reliable, and also have a relatively high degree of agreeableness, they're also very stable in their emotion, very outgoing, very openness. And so they are very likely, more likely to do more extra job, extra role to help others. This is good to the organization. In addition, some of the research also found that certain personality traits are linked to counterproductive work behavior, doing some bad things, such as having a low degree of conscientiousness. We could find that will predict people's deviant behavior, doing some bad things to the organization, such as stealing or will intentionally decrease their work performance, work progress, etc., doing some bad things. And will have a high level of turnover. So we can see that personality does matter in predicting employees' performance as well as work outcome. However, in a more recent time, some of the research confirmed that there is only relatively weak relationship between Big Five and job performance. Why? There are several reasons to explain this phenomenon. Number one is it may be the reason that the Big Five is too broad. Because nowadays the employees are changing. We require the employees to be more proactive and, well, they have to work with others in a more innovative way, more creative way. However, in these 30 items of Ocean or Big Five personality test, it does not completely or largely explain this aspect. The second reason is that because researchers are always combine the 6 items into corresponding to each dimensions. And so they do not really capture the narrowness, the narrowest factors of the personality with job performance. So we were suggesting that it could be more useful if we try to see each of the items corresponding to the job performance, probably will give you more interesting ideas. And well, we could find that probably in some of the items, such as agreeableness, it could also show different links with job performance, such as compliance. It seems that, well, we have a higher relationship with job performance, but modesty, it seems just having a very weak relationship with job performance. Of course, it also depends on different occupation. In some of the occupation, we do really need to have a high level of agreeableness. We need to have someone who comply and obey to the organization rules. For example, like army. And we do really need to have someone agree with the armies, agree with the team regulation. However, in some teams, like marketing team or well, the project team And so for R&D team, we need someone who have a more innovative idea. It may not necessary to need someone who agree on others' opinions. In contrast, we hope to have someone who have different ideas, innovative ideas, so to drive the team's work better.